Hello there, and welcome back to the Kill a Bit of Time podcast. I hope you've had a good week. I've had a pretty decent week myself, all things considered, you know. When I start these podcasts, I always feel an amazing sense of calm come over me, because it's just me, the microphone, and the abyss, and the sort of like entering creative mode, trying to get into the flow. My last podcast I really enjoyed because I only had to stop once throughout the whole thing. The rest of the time I was just in the flow. And after I come out of it, I just feel like this incredible sort of like sense of like calm, peace. I look forward to it every week because when I've completed a podcast, I just feel really peaceful afterwards. I feel energized, focused, and peaceful all at the same time. And I think it's just that creative release. I get the same thing after I've written a song. Or what else? Or when I've cooked a really nice meal and I've really just been engaged in like tasting it and cutting fruit and veg and just like really homed into what you're doing. I think there's a lot to be said for that. And I think it's just doing things that you enjoy. But I think that has to be a sort of a creative element for it, for most people anyway, you know? And this is sort of my release. This is my time of peace throughout the whole week because I'm on a split shift as well today. Got the house to myself, you know, partners at work, little girls at nursery, just me and the house, right? It is a bit noisy sometimes because there's some holidays at the minute, and sometimes you do hear screaming kids around the place, around the neighbourhood, and that's a bit annoying. But that's definitely a me thing. You can't really be annoyed at the sound of kids having fun. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's a bit Scrooge-like to get annoyed at that. The only reason it's annoying sometimes the sound of it bleeds over onto the microphone. But I've just got to think, you know, it's their world as well. You know what I mean? We've got to share the fucking sonic space that we all have together, you know what I mean, within a certain radius. If you really want silence, just fucking go into the middle of the woods. But obviously there's no electricity there. So that's one of the big drawbacks, you know what I mean? You have to start from scratch. But anyway, back onto this week. I've did my working week as usual. Sorry, I'm just gonna have a little sip of my brew there. I love that bloody brew. Anyway, this week, did a bit of shopping. We live near Poole, which is quite a nice little area to do a bit of shopping. My missus loves a bit of shopping. I just go around for like inspiration, for educating myself. I found some vinyl the other day in a charity shop. And it spurred me on to getting a little vinyl player. I want to start playing a bit of vinyl. I think it's coming back. I went to HMV for the first time in about 10 years the other day, and there's loads of vinyl in there, vinyl players, record players, and things like that. And I was just thinking to myself, is this making a big comeback, or is it just it's always sold that sort of stuff, and it's because I haven't been into HMV for the last 10 years. Even saying the word HMV is alien to me. I don't talk about it. I don't go in there. You know what I mean? It never comes into my day-to-day thought. But we just went in there because I was interested in potentially getting a vinyl player. And all of a sudden, they're fucking everywhere. So maybe it's like that thing where you know when you buy a new car and you start seeing the same car everywhere. Maybe it's a bit like that. Maybe now I'm going to start seeing record players everywhere. And I'm not going to trick myself into thinking they're making a comeback when in actual fact, they're not. So only time will tell for that one. But anyway, whilst I was doing this little shopping trip, right, having a look around, a few notable points. I tried to remember notable points now. And my first notable point was seeing a homeless person, and not being horrible, it looked just like Forrest Gump after he did that big run. Because he had a cap on, like one of those caps, with a curved front bit, and long hair and a long beard coming out the edges. Honestly, I know it's like, yeah, you would have, wouldn't you? But not really, because you see a lot of homeless people that are clean shaven. You know what I mean? But this guy wasn't. But anyway, he was drinking a big bottle of Diet Coke. And I just thought that's interesting because even as a homeless person, he's tried to make a choice there. He's gone for Diet Coke over full fat. And I just thought, that's quite interesting. It's quite nice to know that even when, you know, you've got nowhere to live, you've got no job, you know, he's probably got other problems as well. He still goes to Tesco's and goes, I'll go diet. You know what I mean? I sort of thought it was noteworthy. Anyway, something else that was noteworthy about Poole was I always go into this cranky little shop called Boone & Co. And I like it because it just sells a bit of everything. It's got really weird, like oldie little vibes to it. And I overheard someone talking at the cashier. They're like, "Oh, how long have you been going for now?" And they said, "Oh, 205 years." And I was like, "Bloody hell." And I looked into it a bit and I was like, "Oh yeah, it's been around for 205 years." I checked it out on the internet. It used to be called Boone and Gilbert or something. And they changed it to Boone and Co. And apparently they haven't changed the exterior, how it looks, in the whole 205 years. They kept it the same. And it's quite cool. If you go up, if you're ever in Poole, go up the high street into Old Town and you'll see it there. It's one of the oldest buildings, that was sort of untouched in the last 200 years. Interesting. And they pride themselves apparently on being knowledgeable and being able to help people go in there. It's like a DIY shop, but they sell everything. You go in there, you can't find anything because it's just a mess. You go in there looking for a bit of electrical tape, like I did. No chance. You go, where do I start? There's little tubs, little shelves, drawers, fucking bric-a-brac, fucking everywhere. You go, where am I going to find some electrical tape? Do they even have any? You think they must do. And then you ask them, you got any electrical tape, mate? And you go, yep. And then they point to this dusty little fucking basket, and there's about 3 rolls in it. And you go, oh, thanks very much. And you feel bad for like buying half their stock of electrical tape. You think to yourself, did they buy that in? Or was it just in their little muddly drawer at home and they just put it on the shelf? But anyway, I bought the electrical tape and I got on with my fucking day. And then we were walking down the high street. Another noteworthy thing to happen was there's a woman just legging it down the street. And she was shouting, Otto. Otto! I think it was Otto or Oscar. It sounded like Otto. And she lost her kid. Sorry, it's having a bit of my brew there. And she was legging it around town looking for her kid. And we felt really bad for her because we were just thinking, like, that must be awful. And we were walking down the road a bit more, keeping an eye out for like a little lost-looking kid, whoever it might be. And then another homeless person said, "Oh, if you see a kid wearing a lavender shirt, that he's lost. So, make sure he doesn't go anywhere." So it was nice that, like, the whole community was sort of, like, keeping an eye out then. And you could tell the mood in the street had changed. It's like, it was busy. It's summer holidays. It's busy. People everywhere. And you could usually, that you got that like hustle and bustle sound of like voices in the street. It was like that. It was quite positive. And as soon as this woman legged it down the street, the mood of the street changed. And it just reminded me of when I was in Australia and there was this massive ant's nest. Huge. Fucking huge. And I poked it with a stick. And as soon as I poked the ant's nest with a stick, they all started moving super quickly. Like a crack of your fingers. It's like they didn't have time to tell each other. They didn't go, "Oh, I've just been poked with a stick, tell your mate," and pass it down the line. They all just knew straight away something was going on. They're like, right, there's danger mode. And like a flash, they all started moving at exactly the same time. And I thought, how do they all know? Like, I only poked one of them with a stick, but they all knew. And it's like ants are like one brain, aren't they? They're like one thing. They're like a singular being spread out into loads of little ones. Another thing about ants is apparently they don't sleep because they've got alcohol in their blood. So they just they never sleep. They're always going, even at night. But yeah, I think they're just like one thing. And the interesting thing as well, because it was in a big mound of sand, and it was this bloke who was trying to build a house. He'd been doing it for 10 years. They're living in Australia in this like caravan thing, and they bought a bit of land and they wanted to make a house. And so what they did was they pitched up, they got all the materials, and they started from scratch. And it's just taken them way longer than they expected. When I arrived, they were on like year 10 years, and it was nowhere near finished. Nowhere near. They had this one builder bloke living on the land in his caravan called Ugly. His name was Ugly, this Australian bloke. He used to sniff crystal meth and just help him build their house. And his name was Ugly. You can call me Ugly, mate. That's what he was like. And he's just always off his tits. And anyway, it was my job to help Ugly build the house. That was in exchange for food and accommodation. And anyway, this ant's nest was in this big mound of sand. We needed some of that sand that day. And he went over with his little digger and he scooped up a big bit of sand and went about 200 metres over towards where the house was, dumped it so we could use some of it. And what he'd done was he scooped half of that ant's nest accidentally. Well, I don't think he would have cared, but he scooped half the ant's nest with a load of the sand, took it over. So now the ant's nest was split in two. And the next day, I was walking around, I went around to check out the ant's nest. Just by the very next day, the two halves of the ant's nest were joined by a little row of ants going to and from each other. It's like they've gone, what the fuck has happened? They've gone, I found the other half of the nest. Let's just make a little chain. So it was like it was one being. It had been split into two and it was trying to sort of join itself back up together. It was so weird. But anyway, how the hell did I get onto that? I was talking about the woman. Oh yeah. So that's what it was like when the mood changed in the street. It's like something had happened and everyone knew something was up. Even if you didn't know the details, you knew something was up by the mood changing. Maybe that's what happened with the ants. The mood just changed. Anyway, the mood changed and it all just went like that. But it was kind of nice that community spirit was there. Like everyone was keeping an eye out. And eventually the kid was found. And we knew this because someone shouted, they found him, like really loud. I don't know who said it. Some hero said it. So everyone else could know that the kid was found. And then the mood picked up again in the street. It was like a heavy cloud had gone down. And then as soon as everyone heard that he'd been found, the mood just lifted and everyone started chattering and it was better again. So bizarre. Anyway, that was one of the days. And then the other day, it was absolutely scorching. It was like so hot. And we decided just to have a day inside. And, you know, it's good to do that every now and then because there's always stuff to catch up with in the house. But my partner said, I feel a bit bad for, you know, not making most of the weather. I was like, why? If we were out in that, you'd be looking for shade. And we've got shade now in the house. So don't feel bad for it. You can't take... Our daughter's only about 16 months old. She can't go in the blazing sun. She'll get burnt. And, you know, why should you feel bad for just enjoying? Like me, we've got a mortgage, right? We're about nearly there. We've got about another 30, 40 grand to pay. Why feel bad for living in a house that you're paying for? Just enjoy it. You shouldn't feel bad for staying in. You shouldn't feel bad for not leaving the place that you fucking live in. That just doesn't make any sense to me. It's nice to have a little lazy day. If you're obliged to go out in the sun, I'm more likely to go out on an autumn day. I love the colours. I love the weather. I like putting a little hat on and going out, putting some wellies on and putting your walking boots on. That's my favourite time to go out. You don't have to worry about getting burnt or running out of water and things like that. You've got too many worries when it's really hot. It's nice to spend a bit of time inside. So we just had a bit of a lazy day and it was nice. Did a day of nothing. I watched a documentary, right, on... It's a bit of a heavy topic, to be fair. So I'm going to try and skim over it as lightly as possible. But it was about these tribes in Ethiopia, in the Omo Valley. One was called a Hamar tribe and one was called the Kara tribe. Right? And these two tribes were known for killing children. And when you first hear that, you go, blimey, what the fuck's going on there? And then it was an amazing documentary. It's really good. And the reason they do it is because they think that if there's certain children that they can't have in the tribe. It's no good. And these children are called mingi. So if you give birth to a mingi child, that child has to be done away with. You can't stay in the tribe because it will bring a curse among the tribe. The tribe members believe that if a mingi child stays in the tribe, then all the tribe will die from this curse and the only person remaining will be that mingi person. Everyone else will die apart from the one mingi. And that's the curse that they all believed in. And in these tribes, you can't do fuck all unless you've got the elders say so. You can't do anything. So the elders sort of sometimes decide if a kid's mingi or not. But basically, it's split into three main categories, these mingi kids. If you're born out of wedlock, you're mingi. Yeah? You have to be married. Otherwise, if you have a kid out of that, you're mingi. And that's called girl mingi. And then you've got woman mingi, and that's if you have a child without the authorization of the elders. So if the elders haven't given it the nod, and you give birth to a mingi child, you got to get rid of it. And the other one is called teeth mingi. Teeth mingi is if your bottom teeth come through before your top teeth, then you're mingi, and you're done away with then as well. Also, as well as that, if you're born with any sort of physical deformity or mental deformity, you can't contribute towards a tribe, you're mingi and you have to go. Anyway, you got these things, and the way they did it was if you were just born straight away and you're just getting done away with straight away, they'd either chuck you in a river, or they'd take you into the woods and leave you there for the animals. Or the worst way was they would tie a bit of string around your neck and stuff your mouth full of dirt to stop you crying and then kill you that way. That's if you're a baby. And if you had tooth mingi, right, or whatever, it's so bad. But it's just what they believe in, and they're not bad people. Okay, it's just the culture, how it developed. This has been going on since their ancestors. It's been going on since ancient times in their tribe. They've been relatively untouched by the Western world until kind of recently. And where was I? So yeah, and then obviously the harder it is, the older they're going to get. None of these tribe members want to do this. It's not like they've gone, yeah, we've got another mingi on. Let's take to the river. This will be fun. They don't want to do it. It's just they're so scared of the curse of mingi that they feel like they have to do it. Oh yeah. Also another one is if you have twins, they're not having that. If you've got twins, they're both mingi, they've got to go. If you chip your tooth during the first 2 years of your life, or whatever, you're mingi. If you chip your tooth, you're mingi and you're gone. But we're not the only species on Earth to do this thing called infanticide. Yeah. There's other species on the planet that do it. Birds do it. If a bird has got two chicks and one of them's a bit lame and it's not feeding as well, they peck it to death sometimes and just feed the good one. So they're not the only things to do it. You know what I mean? There's lions do it. If a male lion moves into someone else's pride and it takes over, it will kill the cubs of the previous leader of that pack. Rats do it. If they're short on resources, they go, right, there's not enough grain for all of us. They'll eat some of the newest like rats, the baby rats, because they know there's not enough grain to go around. So if there's not enough resources to spread around. And I think that's sort of similar to what's going on with the Kara tribe in a way. But so that made me think, right, so there's got to be a difference there because humans have empathy. We have empathy. Then I thought maybe animals just don't have empathy. And that's how the animals do it without feeling bad for it. But they do, because you see elephants and things like that console each other. If an elephant dies, if an elephant cub dies, whatever they're called, and the elephant mother's grieving, you see other elephants come over and like try and console her. You see it with dolphins. Dolphins can show empathy, interestingly, not just within their own species, but towards other species as well. Dogs have empathy. I heard a story about one dog whose owner died, right? And this dog felt so bad that it just curled up next to him and died with him. It didn't eat, it refused to drink, and it just died with his owner. And then rats as well, going back to rats, they have empathy as well. And the way that they proved that the rats have empathy is that they had two rats in a little cage, right? Did this test. They gave one rat morphine, so it felt well nice and relaxed. And then the other rat who didn't have any morphine started showing signs of being relaxed as well. So it was experiencing the feelings of another member of its species that's next to it. And that's sort of what empathy is in a way, isn't it? You sort of understand and feel what someone else might be feeling. Chimps, you've got chimps. They've been known to show empathy, but they've known to be cunts as well. They can go either way. Does anyone remember that story of this woman in America who owned this chimp, and it went mental, and it sort of it attacked her, got her down, bit all her fingers, or chewed all her fingers and toes off, and then ate her face. It ate her face. She had no face left, and she was passed out, nearly dead. And anyway, she got saved. Someone came over and shot the chimp, and she just had to go out with no face for a while. I think they did a face transplant on her eventually, but they always look a bit weird, those things, don't they? But she had no eyes. It ate her eyeballs as well. Anyway, this chimp obviously wasn't feeling empathy there. It could have been a psychotic chimp. Because don't forget, just because we have different people, we have psychotic people, we have nasty people, we have lovely people. It must be the same in the animal world. Because that chimp was obviously a wanker. But you get really nice chimps as well. It depends how you're brought up. They're intricate beings with minds and brains as well. You know what I mean? We're not that far apart from them. Another way of explaining empathy I've found in animals is emotional contagion. I thought was quite interesting. It's emotional contagion. Someone's emotions can be contagious. I suppose that is what it's like. So how might that be different to empathy in humans? I think it's the same. I think we both can experience emotional contagion. But because us humans, we have other powers in our brains as well. We can analyze things. We can think about things rationally. We sort of have a moral compass. We apply morals. We have cultures that are developed and things like that. We have an amazing ability to process information and solve problems. And a lot of animals don't have that. So a lot of animals might just have the empathy, the emotional contagion. They can feel what other things are feeling, but they're like, so what? Who gives a fuck? Whereas the humans, like the humans in the Kara tribe, they can feel what others are feeling. They can rationalize it. They can moralize it. They can go, okay, this is wrong. What we're doing is wrong. So I think that's originally how they came up with this curse malarkey. I think the real reason this all started must have been that there was a lack of resources going around to support the reproduction levels, the rate of reproduction that was going on in these tribes. They couldn't feed that the amount of mouths that was going around. So they, as a means of survival, they had to cull some of their young. And it's this extremely animalistic type of thing to do. And as they were coming out of prehistoric times, I suppose, and as we developed and evolved, we sort of realized that sort of thing is morally wrong. So they had to come up with this curse idea. You couldn't say, could you? It's a bit cold to say, wow, there's too many of us. We'll have to trim the fat. Let's just do away with some of our young. You couldn't do that. You couldn't do it now. You couldn't do it in a tribe. So what they've done is they come up with this curse idea to mitigate the rationality behind it. And this must have been thousands of years ago that this curse popped up. They've said, right, we have to kill the Mingi children, because if we don't, we get killed by the curse. And that's, I think, how the curse started. It wasn't because but it happened so long ago that nobody can remember the actual real reasons why they have to do it. They just know it's bad. And in a way, like, if you look at it, the way the curse describes what's going to happen is accurate if it was about the tribe not surviving if they let the Mingi children live. Because if they did, then there wouldn't be enough resources to go around and the tribe wouldn't survive. So in a way, the curse was quite accurate. The curse is the tribe will die if you let these Mingi children live. And if you look at the actual stone cold facts, that is what would happen. Like, probably maybe not these days, because they've got more support from the rest of Ethiopia. There's quite a lot of it. It's like gone on a bit now. There's a lot more resources to go about. There's a lot more aid packages. There's a lot more support for indigenous people and things like that. But back ago, there would have been none of that, and they would have had to do something. They would have had to take it into their own hands to perpetuate the survival of their tribe, and they had to do this. They had to do this mingi practice to survive. And they came up with the curse as a way to mitigate the moralities of it. That's my take on it anyway. So this documentary is all about this mingi practice coming to an end with these tribes. And the way that the reasons that this tribe was changing, and this documentary covered the span of like 6 months to a year, maybe longer actually. But there was this bloke who was born as a member of the Kara tribe. And apparently his dad seen him like writing in the dirt when he was a really young age, and his dad was like, oh, he's really clever, I want to send him to school. And the elders in the tribe didn't like it, because they thought any sort of like education from outside the tribe is going to be a threat to the traditions and the culture of the tribe, which they're not wrong, but old people are always stuck in their ways anyway. It's the same anywhere you go in the world. These elders are stuck in their ways. They didn't want it to change. But anyway, this bloke insisted. Sent his son to school, which is 70 miles away. He had to walk there. I don't think he walked it every day, because you couldn't do that, could you? I think he must have walked there, stayed at school for a week, and then walked back at the end of the week or something like that. But 70 miles he had to walk to get to this school. And whilst he was at this school, he obviously learned more about the world and realised at some point that this mingi practice is wrong. So he made it his mission to go back to the tribe and tell them all that it's wrong, and that he tried to end it, which is an incredible thing to try and do. You know, to stand up to what you think's wrong in a place where, you know, change is going to be looked on extremely negatively by the people around the whole place that's brought you up, by the elders, by the majority of the tribe. You know what I mean? His dad was taking a lot of abuse for it because his kid was coming in to try and change everything. So it took a lot of courage. But like I said, he wasn't on his own. There was other people in the tribe who thought like that, because the tribe was becoming a little bit more empathetic, I suppose, and a little bit more clued into what was going on. I think the whole world has moved on like that, but quite quickly, actually, in the last 100 years or so. You know what I mean? It wasn't long ago. I recently discovered that, back in the Victorian times, they would chuck kids into mental asylums along with the adults. And sometimes these kids weren't mentally mental. They had like, if they had like a dodgy leg, if they're physically disabled, they're going to a mental asylum with all the mental adults. What a horrific place to be as a child. That must have been unimaginable, horrific situations. Torture. Used to torture people all the time. You know, slavery. Yeah, holocausts. Right. We used to be fucking awful to each other all the time. I'm not saying we're not now. I'm sure there's parts of the world where some sorts of stuff like that is still going on. But it used to be a lot more rife than it is these days. You know what I mean? Like, all that was going on everywhere. Nowadays, you know, people get offended if you use the wrong pronoun. If you were in the Kara tribe and you were 3 and you said, and you're a boy, and you said, oh, actually, I'm a girl, you'd be considered mingi and you'd be taken down to the river. You know what I mean? So I think people need to count their blessings a little bit more. You know what I mean? Because people are always whinging about the state of affairs these days and about how they're being ill-treated and things like that. It's like, go back 100 years, yeah, live there for a couple of weeks, then come back to the present time and tell me how fucking ill-treated you're being. You know what I mean? People need to gain a bit more perspective about how fucking good we have things. But anyway, this bloke, right, Lael, his name was, he started going back to the tribe and rescuing babies. Like, he would get a call on the radio, say, right, someone's left their baby in the woods, right, left it for the animals, and he'd go, right, go, and they've got like 3 hours to get to this baby to try and look for it in the woodland. Anyway, they find them, and then they started this little like orphanage for the abandoned babies in the Omo Valley. Amazing. And anyway, the elders called him in. They're like, all right, Lael, get in here. We need to have a little chat. And they said to him, like, look, because they're all farmers, these tribes people in Ethiopia in the Omo Valley. They farm corn and things like that. And the way they put it to him was, they said, look, we grow corn here. If a monkey comes one day and they nick a piece of our corn, we spot him. And we go, right, if he comes back the next day, we're going to shoot him, the monkey. And he says, right, we're going to treat you the same. If you come and steal any of more of our mingi children, we're going to kill you. We will kill you. And apparently Lael said back to them, he said, I take your warning. I understand what you're saying, but I'm not a monkey. I'm your child. And he tried to explain that to them, but they weren't having any of it. They were like, no, fuck off. Stop nicking the mingi kids. Anyway, they had another meeting and the government got involved. And this was all organised by Lael. And the government come in. And they're like, right, another big meeting with the elders and Lael and the government and the elders. And they all said, right, elders, by the laws of Ethiopia, it is illegal to kill anyone, not just kids, but anyone. You're not allowed to kill. And to the elders, they're all scratching their heads like, what do they mean? What do they mean we're not allowed to kill people? If we decide to kill someone, surely that's our fucking decision. That was a strange concept for them. For these people who live in the world somewhere, they never see. They've just come in and said, just FYI, guys, we are in charge of all of this, okay? All of you, all our laws dictate you, all right, as well as everywhere else. So to the tribe, they're like, what the fuck do you mean? You're never here. This is our land. This is our culture. How can you come in and tell us we can't kill someone? They're all scratching their heads like that, thinking this is a strange concept. Anyway, they sort of took it on board because the police would come over every now and then and do checks and see who's pregnant, and then they would know, and then they'd be like, right, and they were keeping tabs on the tribe members to make sure they weren't killing the mingi kids. And so what they started doing, the tribe members, was instead of killing them, they were just putting them in this hut. They made a special hut for mingi babies who were born, and they just put them in there. They wouldn't kill them; they just leave them in there to die. And so that was their little loophole they found. So it all went back again. It went on a bit. There's a few more meetings. But one thing led to another. And the fact is, that's what he did. What Lael did was he drove back. He took the warning of the tribe members. He stopped nicking Mingi kids. He had about 6 of them that he rescued. And he drove them back to the tribe about a month or two later, or 3 months later. And he said, look what I have. Mingi children. And they're not bringing a curse to me or anyone else. And when all the other tribe members seen these older Mingi kids who had grown up a bit since the last time they seen them, and no curse, they started to think, maybe there is no fucking curse after all. This Lael fella might be onto something. And obviously, if you're a mother and you're pregnant and you know you're growing a Mingi kid, you're going to think, I don't want to kill my Mingi kid. I'll give it to Lael. So it started spreading this idea that you don't have to kill your Mingi kid. And so that was a great move by Lael. And they had another big meeting and all that sort of stuff. And awesome, at the end, they had a big meeting and they said, okay, we're going to end Mingi in the Carter tribe. 2012 that happened. It's all because of this Lael fella. He did it on his own. He changed a culture that had been going on for thousands of years. And just with his own persistence and his own just not giving up. He never gave up. That's the key. He changed it. He managed to do it. And what they did was at the end is they sacrificed a goat to bring in the new change. And then they said, right, because they hardly ever get rain over there. If they get rain, it's like it's a sacred day. And they said, right, we've made this change. We sacrificed a goat. If it rains today, that means that God has blessed our decision. And oh my God, they are so lucky. 5 minutes later, it started pissing it down. And they're all going, yeah, fucking dancing around, going, yeah, God is happy with our choice, blah, blah, blah. How lucky is that, though? Imagine if it didn't rain. They were like, well, we made the right call, guys, because it's looking pretty sunny out there today. So luckily it rained. You know what I mean? But I just found this bloke inspiring. Lael. You know what I mean? He didn't give up. He kept on trying. And eventually he got the result he wanted. And I'm going to apply that same philosophy to my making of fudge. Because I had another crack at the fudge the other day. And it was all right. It was better. I made peanut butter fudge this time. And it was a lot better than the last one, the texture. But it's still too crumbly. It's still too granulated. So, am I going to give up? No. I'm going to be like Lael. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep persisting with this fudge making until I get perfect fudge. I'm going to try different sugars. I'm going to try different cooking temperatures. I'm going to try different cooking lengths of time. I'm going to try everything until I get perfect fudge. All right? I'm not going to let Lael down. Yeah? You know what I mean? So that ends my first feature on self-improvement. Right? Don't give up. Never give up. Make fudge. Save the kids. All right? Anyway, so we're going to move swiftly on to my next feature. We're going to limp on over to the next feature, which I've done one before and I'm excited to do another one again. And it's called In the Garden. 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 Well, here we are. In the garden. And what I'm going to be talking about today from in my garden is the apple tree. I've got a lovely apple tree at the bottom of my garden. And when I say the bottom of my garden, it's not a long garden. It's literally about 10 meters. And 10 meters down my garden, there's this apple tree. And it's probably it gets to about 15 meters high. It's quite big for the size of the garden, to be fair. And it drops a lot of apples. And it's a pain in the ass most of the time through the summer because of how many apples it drops. And I thin the apples when they're sort of coming out. And I know this because I did this job when I was in New Zealand. I used to do apple thinning. And you had to go along. And if there's a little tiny mini bunches of apples of about 6 or 7, you thin them down to about 3 or 4. And the 3 or 4 that are left are going to be bigger and better. So I did that anyway. But I still get hundreds of fucking apples dropping off this tree. So what I've done in the past is I scoop them all up and I took them to this bloke at work who turns them into cider and various other alcohols. So that was one way, but he's left now. so I'm left with nothing to do with all my apples. I gave some to the neighbours. There's only so many apples you can give to the neighbours before they're like, we've had enough. We've never told you that we like apples. We appreciate the gesture, but stop giving us apples. We just give them one load. And I got stung actually with this because last year I gave the neighbours some apples in a basket, and it was a basket I don't really care about. They can have the fucking basket. But anyway, they brought the basket back. They left the basket on my front outside my front door. So I thought, they brought the basket back. That's nice. So this year, I gave my neighbour some apples, but I put the apples in a really nice wooden crate that said herb garden on it. And we like this crate, but I assumed they'd just bring the crate back like they did with the fucking basket. But they didn't. They had the bloody thing. I was like, bastards. Was this their plan all along? But anyway, let them have it. It's, it's not the end of the world. I got over it eventually. And now what I do with the apples is I sort of I sneakily put them over my fence with an extendable trowel. I've got this extendable trowel from Robert Dyer's, so you don't have to bend down to do your troweling, which is quite convenient. And I just stab the apples and I sort of put them over the fence. And over the other side of the fence is a pathway and a bush, and they just drop in the bush. No harm done to anyone. But anyway, I've had my fill of apples. So I don't feel bad for getting rid of them because I've eaten a lot of fucking apples in my time. I used to work on apple orchards in New Zealand, right? And it was a weird little job. It wasn't anything to do with harvesting, cultivating, or anything like that. It was what we had to do was every row of apples, right, in the orchards had to have this white sheet laid down. You have to lay a white sheet, and what it does is it reflects the sun off of the white sheet back onto the underside of the apples. If you've ever had an apple tree in your garden, it's red on top and it's red where the sun hits it. And a lot of the supermarkets and people distributing the apples, the redder the better. You know what I mean? When you see an apple that's got red and green, it's always, you think that ones with more red on it is better, isn't it? It symbolises ripeness. It symbolises ready to eat. So they want it to be as red as possible. So the white sheets help with that, bounce the light from underneath, so they get more of a red all-round finish. And yeah, he used to do that job. He used to lay these sheets. It used to be orchestrated by this mental fucking foreman called George. And he was this Scottish bloke, right? And he used to shout at us all the time. He was about, I think he must have been in his early 80s, late 70s. Like, he was old, but you wouldn't stop him from giving you some serious shit. He would shout at you, I've seen more energy in a Mars bar, which never makes sense to me because there's quite a lot of energy in a Mars bar. Or he'd say, you're as about use as a chocolate teapot. Yeah, that was one of his favourites. And he used to shout at us all. It's quite a savage little job, but it was good. What's he doing it? If he accepted you into his crew, you felt like, it felt good because he only allowed decent people on his crew. He did a lot of sacking. He used to love sacking people. He'd sack people all the time. He'd see it happen daily almost. He'd eye someone out and go, right, I'm sacking them today. And he'd sack them. I mean, this one bloke, this Scottish lad, right? And I think he must have been about 18, 19. And one day he thought he did a really good job. And he made the mistake of thinking that George liked him because they're both Scottish. And George the Scotsman doesn't want to seem to be favouritising people because of his Scottish fucking heritage, his roots, does he? So he didn't like that. Anyway, I knew this kid's cards were marked. I knew his days were numbered because I could see the way George was looking at him. Anyway, this bloke didn't do a bad job. He came out of his first few days. He was strutting along. So one day he did like 5 rows in one day. Apparently that's really good or something. He thought he'd done a good day's work. He was proud of what he did. He thought he did a really good job. Anyway, George gives him the finger, the come here signal. And he goes strutting over, thinking he's going to get a good boy, like a well done, you've done really well. And George just fires him. He goes, you're not needed anymore. And yeah, he used to do that to people all the time. And it was a mental old job as well, because these orchards, you had to get from one to the other quite often. Like every day, you had to drive to like 2 or 3 orchards. And you'd finish your rows, get you all together, and he'd go, right, guys, next orchard we're meeting at Sakaga. And he jumps in his van and he fucking hightails it off to the next orchard. And you have to jump in your vehicle and keep up because he drives like a maniac. and you have to try and keep up on these roads that you don't know, try and make it the next orchard. I got lost once, managed to find where he was, and I was about 5 minutes late, and he had my bollocks. But it's difficult keeping up with him. Another thing about that job was you just had to work in whatever the weather, you're working in it. That's it. It doesn't matter if it's pissing it down, snow, hail, whatever. And in New Zealand, you get a lot of changeable weather. And quite often it was raining. So, so you had to have wellies. So I went and one of my little method, because the wellies are expensive. If you want a decent pair of wellies in New Zealand, it's about $45. But anyway, the good thing is that I had a little trick up my sleeve. I thought, I'm not paying $45 for a pair of wellies. But the good thing about New Zealand supermarkets is a lot of people walk around barefoot in the supermarkets, which is awesome. It's nice and smooth on the feet. It's nice. But I thought this is a good opportunity for me. So what I'll do is I'll walk in bare feet and I'll walk out in a fresh, lovely pair of wellies. Nobody will know. So I did that and it worked a fucking treat. But anyway, whilst I was working on these apple orchards, I had my fill of apples. You know what I mean, some days we would just have apples for lunch. So because it was just cheap. At the end of the day, you know what I mean, we needed all the money we could get. So that's why I'm a bit sick of apples. So, that's why I don't feel bad flinging a few in me bush. I mean, I do keep some. I keep some and I put them in my fruit bowl. Yeah, and what got me thinking this week was I put some apples in my fruit bowl, right? And they got mixed up with the apples we got from the supermarket. And the weird thing is, my apples from my tree started going mouldy, but the ones from the supermarket didn't. They were unblemished, just sitting there, just like the day we bought them, whereas mine were showing signs of degradation. I thought, what is going on there then? That's not a good sign, is it? What are they putting in my fucking apples? So I looked into it. And one explanation is the application of wax, right? So apples, right, when they grow, well, they have this natural wax that coats them. But when they're in production, right, when after they're harvested, they're all washed. And then apparently the wax is washed off. So they have to apply a new wax. And the wax they use is called carnauba wax or carnauba wax. I don't know how to pronounce it. And it protects it from bacteria. It helps to retain the moisture in the apple. It makes it look nice as well. Have you ever rubbed an apple against your shirt and it goes shiny? That's because of the wax. This carnauba wax is called the Queen of Waxes. And it comes from a sort of type of palm tree. And yeah, it is food safe apparently. I was trying to find something wrong with it, but irritatingly, it's all right. Even though it is used in things like boot polish and furniture polish and cosmetics, like sweets and stuff like that, to give it that shine. It is actually non-toxic and food safe. So, but that was Google's initial explanation. And I thought there's got to be more to it because that doesn't make fucking sense. Because my apples, they've got their natural wax. The apples from the shop, they've got their carnauba wax, however it's pronounced. So they've both got wax on, but it's still my ones that are going mouldy. So that little wax explanation from Google, I wasn't having that. I was like, right, I'm gonna look a bit deeper. And it took me a little while. Google tried waving wax in my face. And it took me a few times before I could actually manage to get to the truth of the matter. Turns out that commercially grown apples are actually treated with something called diphenylamine, or DPA. Right, this diphenylamine is a chemical preservative. It's a chemical preservative that is banned in the EU. Right? When we left the EU, we weren't under the same restrictions anymore. So companies could then start using chemicals that are banned in the EU. We're actually way behind the fucking EU and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, so they're allowed to add this chemical to the apples. And that's why, that's the real reason that the apples aren't going off. But I just thought it was interesting how Google tried to give me some bullshit about wax first. I mean, I must be programmed to give me some bullshit answer first because it's not going to tell you the truth. It doesn't want you to know that it's actually this diphenylamine stuff that's going into our food. It's trying to wave wax in your fucking face first, but it's not allowed to hide all the truth because it's in public record. Like if you went like searching around, it's not like a big conspiracy. It's not a secret, right? companies and things like that are openly putting this sort of stuff into our food and using it as preservatives and things like that. It's just that Google don't want that to be the first thing you read. They want the first thing you read to be, oh, we use a lovely little carnauba wax on your apples and that's why they stay fresh. It's bullshit. It's the fucking chemicals. But anyway, the reason that this chemical is banned, right, in the EU is because it can cause the formation of something called nitrosamines. And these nitrosamines are carcinogenic, of course. So it can give you fucking cancer. The apples can give you cancer because of the shit that they're putting them in. And even on its own, even if it doesn't form these nitrosamines, whatever it is, even on its own, this diphenylamine is toxic. It can cause damage to your organs if swallowed, inhaled, or absorbed by your skin. Right? So we're doing that. Yeah, no, we're directly putting it inside ourselves. Are we swallowing it? Well, I just ate 3 apples, so yeah. And it damages aquatic life as well. So that wherever they're treating these apples, right, with this stuff, if that excess waste from this apple treatment is going back into our water systems, which it probably is, it's also damaging aquatic life as well. So it's cunty on 2 levels. But your fruit bowl isn't as healthy as you might think. But that's not the only thing that's that the EU have had banned, and we haven't. There's been loads of stuff that since Brexit, right? The EU have banned 8 chemicals that they're not allowed to use that the UK are still using, and there's another 16 pending, like about to be banned. And the UK has banned a grand total of fuck all, nothing since Brexit hasn't banned a thing, and I wanted to make sure this is fair, and I'm not getting political or anything like that. It's just where The Guardian led me, right? That information was from The Guardian, right? Quite a lefty type newspaper. So I've double checked it. I fact checked it again just to make sure I'm not being biased. And I did double check it. And it turns out that there's a little grey area. The UK is considering banning some things, right? So it's considering banning lead in ammunition, right? I don't know what the fuck they're doing that for. Like, surely if you're getting shot, the last thing you're going to be worried about is lead poisoning. You know what I mean? They go, oh, fuck, what's wrong? I've just been shot in the chest. Oh, shit, mate. Fucking lead poisoning, innit? Oh, never mind the fact that you're bleeding to death. So that was a bit of an odd one for me. And then the other one was, maybe this is a bit more important, potentially they're going to be banning the chemical that they found in that may be harmful in tattoo ink. It's the tattoo ink that's the problem. It's not the food. Is there's chemicals in the food, guys? Right, let's fuck that off. More importantly, what's in the tattoo ink? The Hell's Angels are dropping like flies. You know what I mean? Let's sort that out first. I mean, I think that they've got their priorities all twisted up. What, taking lead out of bullets? Worrying about what's in the tattoo ink, but they're not worried about fucking apples that we're feeding to our children. Fucking hell. But we've fallen way behind with the prohibition of harmful substances compared to the EU. Not only that, but the UK have actually reinitiated the use of like some pesticides that were previously banned in the UK as well. So it's not like they're falling behind on banning new chemicals that have come out that the companies are using, and they're just not keeping up with that. They're actually bringing back chemicals that were previously banned in the UK under EU law, and so you know what I mean. It's I don't know what they're playing at. So yeah, that's where it took me to from in the garden. The garden has led me to my fruit bowl. I'm now a little bit wary of my fruit bowl, and it's all thanks to my apple tree. My apple tree just pointed at my fruit bowl, going, "Watch out, there's shit in there," and it's right. So the moral of that story is, listen to your plants. They might know more what's going on than you think they do. You know what I mean? So listen to your fucking dandelions, yeah? Whisper to the bushes. Lick a leaf, see what it tastes like. So that pretty much takes us to the end of today's podcast. And just to give you a little bit of a backstory, because I've spoken a lot about New Zealand in today's podcast, so it'd be fitting to leave it with a very short tune that I made about someone called Brother Ray. And this Brother Ray fella is someone we met whilst we're in New Zealand. And he's this Maori fella. He's a part of the Mongrel Mob gang, which I'll talk about in another podcast. And he sorted us out with a few bits and bobs every now and then. You know what I mean? Bit of marijuana. I don't do that anymore. But back then I did. And this fella brother Ray. He sorted us out. And I've wrote a small, short song about him, so I'll leave you with that, and we'll talk more about the Mongrel Mob and Brother Ray at a future date. So that's all for today, and enjoy. Brother Ray, we're back again. You know what we're searching for. In the pouring rain, well, come inside, my friend. I will take your money. You can watch my daughter. I'll be right back with a brand new bag. Brother Ray, what happened to my Sunday? Brother Ray, what happened to my Sunday? Brother Ray came back again with some crystal methamphetamine for me, Chris, Jesse, and Jimmy. But the deal was short and the bag was wet, and we needed a comparison. But no, we just wanted more. To my Sunday, Brother Ray, what happened to my Sunday? So we went back to the tinny house where we met the guy that ripped us off before, and we asked for more. So we did, and so we do, till the morning comes and knocks for you at your door, at your aching jaw. Brother Ray, what happened to my Sunday? Brother Ray, what happened to my Sunday? To my Sunday, Brother Ray, what happened to my son? Got a bit of time, didn't it? Know what I mean. See you later.